So we have our young lady here. It's good to look at her face because yesterday we did all the non-ablative lasers on her face. And the supposition and proposition is that she is going to be able to go back to work the next day. She could conceivably go back to work that same day, but she'll be a little puffy, little red, a little swollen. Remember what we did with her face. We did IPL, the max G. We did the 1540 fractional infrared, wrinkle reduction. We did along the jawline and lower face temperature, as well as her belly. We did a full face picofacial with fractional picosecond. So all the non-ablative or minimal ablative lasers were done, with today being more the ablative day. And if we look at her face and zoom in a bit, let's look at her face, maybe turn down the f-stop a little bit. That's beautiful, very nice. Now if you look at her face, she's got a little welt, she's kind of, you know, a little red, a little mottled. I wouldn't say that her unadorned skin looks awesome. It looks a bit beaten up, but it looks acceptable in makeup. She could go back to work in makeup. I would give her the name of 2 or 3 dermatologists I don't like, and she could tell everyone, oh, my dermatologist was treating my sun damage. No stigma with that. And I'll tell her when she looks really good, use my name. That's a good strategy as well. Welcome, Sarah. Here we are in Washington, D.C., and Sarah, social media digitalist, is going to be recording this for posterity and profit. So if we look at this face, it's actually back to work face. But we're not done yet. So now we're going to add the stuff that I would do with downtime to get a slightly better result. And so generally, I'd listen to the patient. First 10 minutes, make them your friend. What do you do? Oh, really? What does that involve? That's interesting. Married, kids. Why are you on antidepressants, anxiolytics, and antipsychotics? Kind of explore those kind of themes. Decide if they're appropriate or not. And ask her top 3 things about her face and neck that bother her. We got that yesterday. She hates, zoom out a bit so we can see the neck. She hates the waddle, that wiggly, jiggly, wiggly, jiggly stuff. Now, once I remove that fat, and she's got a little scar there, and that was from? Thyroglossal duct cyst. Yep. And they left her a little train track scarring. And so that thyroglossal duct cyst is part of our strategy. She's got a little cicatricial caterpillar on her neck. And that's from train track. That was when you were a teenager?
I was 4 years old.
4 years old.
Sick kids
wow.
Hospital.
Sick kids. Was it Dr. Zucker or Dr. Thompson?
Dr. Farmer, I believe.
Dr. Farmer. Now that goes way back. And so that was from another millennium. A millennium where they actually left the sutures in and didn't use subcuticular. So we're going to turn back the clock on the scar. You don't see many thyroglossal duct cysts with this kind of a suture pattern. Dr. Farmer was a old school, very talented plastic surgeon, and you had this done probably in the 50s.
59.
59, 1 year before I emerged from my mother's uterus. Wow. And so that's cool. You don't see that often. Great. And so, but swallow for me. See that? Swallow again. It's adherent to the underlying trachea and preplatysmal fascia. So I'm going to figure out some way to free that up for you today and make it look better. Okay? And then we're going to take that loose skin. Show me your two, zoom out a bit. There we go. And we got to make that better. Now there's some fat there and some skin laxity. So I want to melt the fat. But if I melted the fat without doing something with the skin, guess what? It ain't going to look so good. It's going to hang even more. She'll be like that flying squirrel in that Mountie cartoon from the 70s. Maybe Rocky and Bullwinkle. Remember that? You guys get that down here? Yeah, you did. Wow. See, that's the way you think of the RCMP in Canada. Okay, so loose skin. Now, once we get up into, so that's going to be submental smart lipo, fractional CO2. I'll do some type of subcision here, release it, and fractionate it aggressively. That'll be, I'll try to make that almost gone in a single treatment. Now, that's our neck. Now, when we look into the face, what else are we going to do? Now, if we zoom out and show me her face from top to bottom, and so I would ask her top 3 things that bug her. What does she want to achieve? And if she said, I'd like to look 21 again, I'll go, I can't do that. That's unrealistic, ma'am. 24, 25, we can do that. But 21, 22, you got to realign your expectations. So I would tell her 50 to 70% reduction in wrinkles, return the volume, a little tighter. And at 63, I can have you looking 53.
Wow.
Now, is 10 years of youth worth it for you? Because I'm going to charge you for every year of youth. Because they'll ask you, say, how much do you charge for Botox? I don't charge anything for Botox, ma'am. I don't charge for Botox. How much for filler? I don't charge for filler. Well, what, you mean this is free? No, I'm going to charge you for a year of youth purchase. How many years do you want? 10 years? Well, that's $1,700 for every year. And after 5 years, there's a sliding discount, sort of like the sliding neck you've got. And so what will it actually cost? I don't know, ma'am. I love what I do. You're going to look awesome. Let me get Lori or Jenny, my coordinator. She'll talk about that annoying thing called a fee. To be honest, I would do this for free. I just love what I do. And you're going to look awesome. But they're going to charge you a fee because they want to get paid. But I'm just here for you because I can't imagine not doing this. I'm looking forward to working with you. I walk out of the room, bring in Lori. Lori or Jenny would talk about how to schedule, how to book. Before I leave, I'd turn and say, oh, I forgot. Do you have a big event coming up? Do you have a big event coming up? A reunion? Do you have a daughter's getting married? Do you have some kind of big family event coming up?
Me, not that big, but some things.
When is that?
Next Thursday?
Next Thursday?
Yes.
OMG, you're going to look hideous.
It's a faculty meeting. I don't have to go.
Yeah, I would not go. Do you have anything like really big, family, social, personal coming up in the next 6 months?
Of, no.
And then I'd say, well, in the next year, do you have a birthday perhaps?
Let's say yes.
And when is that?
It'll be next March.
Now, next March, when you're turning 64 and you look 49, I want you to think about that when you're next recovering, because that'll probably be worth it to you. And I'd leave her with a little future pacing, the buyer's remorse. And then I'd say, okay, I'm looking forward to working with you. Let me get Lori. Lori would take her into her office, sit down, go, when would you like to schedule? That's it. Not, would you like to know more about the weeping, oozing, crusting? How long you'll be red and swollen? What's the risk of a burn? What if you get a DVT or pneumonia? That is for the pre-op. I disclose some risks and benefits. I always start with the risks, end with the benefits, so that's the last thing they remember. And then someone's got to close the deal. Now, in that top 3, I would have sat in front of the mirror and I would have said, you know, those are the things that bug you, your neck, and you got some lines. Do you want to know what I think? If you want to look 10 years younger, this is what I would do. And then I'd take an eyebrow liner, and they always say, yeah, I want to know that. That's why I'm here. And so I'd sit in front of that mirror and I'd go, let's start with the top and work our way down. If we look at your brow, very nice skin, no sun damage, well done. But you've got a few worry lines and wrinkles here, and people are going to think that you're kind of worried, apprehensive, pensive. You've got a bit of a crunchy frown line. People might think you're a little angry. And then you've got some very fine lines and crinkles around your eye, and some crepiness under your eye that take really good skin and make you look just a little older. And then you've got a little sunken loss of volume under your eye. You've got beautiful cheeks. We don't want to ruin those and make you look done. But you've got a little jowliness. Zoom out, show me the whole face. Chin down just a bit. There we go. So if you look at your face, you're a little boxy. You're getting that pre-jowl. Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah.
And so you've got what I call the down-going mouth powder, the marionette line here. You've got a little jowliness here. And you've got a down-going mouth pout here, a little jowliness. And your lip is a little deflated. You've got some vertical lines here that make you look a little older. And you've got this deep line here. And so you look a bit boxy. So you've gone from nice and oval in your youth to kind of square. We want to open that up again. So I'd have her look in the mirror and say, do you agree? You got a few lines here, not a disaster. But if I looked at your corner of the mouth up, you look way younger than from here down. From here down, you look 63. From here up, you look younger than 63. And my vision would be put this all back in harmony. And do you agree? And she'd nod. Yeah, I agree. I see that. So she's acknowledging that the problemist is the same thing I see. And say, so we all agree on the problem. Now, what do we need for the problem? We need something for the lines and wrinkles. We agree? And she'd say, yeah, that makes sense. I would do a little Botox and some fractional laser. The Botox would be twice a year forever to look 15 years younger. And we use the laser to reverse the creasing that you've got. We do a little fractional laser under your eye and above your lip. That would make the wrinkles 90% better. Does that make sense to you? And she'd go, yeah, what's the downtime? What's the risk? We talk about that. And then in terms of volume, man, you've got a little bit of loss of volume in your temple. It makes you look a little skeletal. the side of the brow, a little skeletal, under the eye, a little skeletal. And so I want to bring back what I would call the fullness of youth. Now, you're probably afraid, ma'am, of filler face. I am doing it. So you will, by definition, not have filler face. You'll have lovely face. But you don't get lovely face without volume. Too much volume, you get filler face. So let's not videotape our client here. She's not agreeing to be on your cell phone. She can be on mine because she's my patient, okay? Now, again, if you want to watch this, you can watch the videos on the Boomerang website without owning Boomerang. And so speak to Samantha. If you want to watch these 30 times a year, you can see a live workshop from the comfort of your own home between the next Netflix show you're going to binge on, okay? And so we're going to add a little bit of volume, toxin, and filler to the upper third. 3 things: ablation, modulation, volumization. To the middle third, the infraorbital buttress, the hollowing. I love her cheekbone. I'm not going to touch that. But in order to open up her face, I want to make her zygomatic arch a little more volumized. Zygomatic arch, not her malar eminence, a little more volumized. And then we get to the mouth. I want to lift the corner of the mouth, and I'm going to treat the pre-gel sulcus, and chin up just a bit, and the post-jowl mandibular border to give her the illusion of a little mini lift. The illusion of a little mini lift right here. And so I look at 4 buttresses for volume: supraorbital, infraorbital, above the brow, under the brow, temporal hollow. Buttress number 1, buttress number 2. Malar zygomatic arch, mandibular border. 4 buttresses on that side, 4 buttresses on this side. My goal is to open up the midface, raise the brow, use modulators to uncouple the depressors, the lateral depressors of the brow, the central depressors of the brow, and the depressors of the midface, which are DAO and OO. Orbicularis oris rolls the lip in, LLS rolls the lip out. So to elevate the midface, I'm going to use volume and toxin. I'm going to do ablation for smoothing the lip, ablation, volume, and toxin for the brow, and then what I call the beauty buttresses. So 4 on this side, 4 on that side, and then right down the middle, the lip and the nose. We're going to roll out our lip a little bit, make it a little more youthful, lift the corner of the mouth, and then last, and certainly not least, if you look at her nose contour, it's a proud, strong dorsum. But as her face shrinks, she thinks her nose is growing because it looks bigger and bigger every decade because her face is getting smaller and smaller. And so all I'm going to do is restore a little bit of balance. I'm going to inject, turn all the way to the side. Yep. I'm going to inject a little above and a little below her bump. I'm going to raise her tip slightly, not Miss Piggy, but make it a little more elegant. And by doing that, it gives the illusion of raising her midface, and the two go together. And these are all going to be accomplished in under an hour. Okay? Now that would be if I'm in my office, because I'm talking to you guys, it's going to annoy me and slow me down. But we'll do it relatively quickly. We'll have a break between the laser and the injectables, okay? Okay, we're going to crescendo here with the last part of our rejuvenation, which is going to be volume, toxin, upper third elevation, middle third shaping, jawline contouring, lip and nose. Combination of Botox wherever there's a depressor, volume where there's deflation, and a little tiny ablation, upper lid and lower lid. Now, at the break, I did a quick little V1, V2, V3 block. What does that mean? It means that I took about, I'm not going to do it, but 5 cc's of 1%, 5 cc's of saline. I did the supratrochlear, supraorbital, infraorbital, zygomaticofacial and temporal, intraoral, mental nerve blocks. So simple block anesthesia, giving her more anesthesia than she needs because the product has lidocaine in it anyway. Okay, so do you need to do that? No. But if you're thinking of doing some CO2 and you're not quite sure, you want to have some local anesthetic available for the infraorbital perioral at least, because the lidocaine and the Juvenamain can be enough. So let's do a little Botox uncoupling of the brow, then brow lift with volume, then go to the midface, and finally the jawline. Okay? Do we do the intro? You're already filming though, right? Yeah, that's okay, good. And so just come off me, we'll do a little impromptu. Hello, back, Washington, D.C. We're going to take a look at our young lady. The first part of our rejuvenation was Smart Light with the Submentum and CO2. Now we're moving up over the face. We're going to use neuromodulators, Botox, volumizing, Juvederm, and fractional ablation to create an elevation of the brow, mid-face, and neck. So let's see how that works, okay? Let's come back to our patient now, and if we analyzed her before, which is why I want to do that before, she's got a strong depressor apparatus. The corrugator supercilii does that. I'm not as concerned about pure corrugation. That goes along for the ride, but I want to shape the face. A squirter is obsessed with wrinkles, and they treat lines. Don't be a line manager. Sometimes you have to drop back to line management. Be a facial shaper. There's way more value in face lifting and contouring than wrinkle reduction. So think shape. Shape is uncouple depressor, uncouple the lateral depressors of orbicularis oculi to get a little brow elevation. Soften central frontalis. You're going to get a very, very nice result. So let's do our upper, middle, lower third lifting procedure here. We already marked that out, and so we're going to go to modulation first. What are we going to use? Allergan, 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 our kind and gracious philanthropic pharmaceutical sponsor for today. Allergan, 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 Allergan. Why Botox? Everyone's heard of it. It works, been around since 1983 for wrinkles. It doesn't work any better than Dysport or Xeomin, no. Is there any price difference? Not when you realize that Botox and Xeomin is not one-to-one. Can you talk to them, Sarah, and tell them I'm half an hour late, and don't call me again, call you. Okay, that Xeomin is not actually 1-to-1. It's more like 2-to-1. Dysport is not 3-to-1. It's more like 4-to-1. And when you have those dilutions relatively, Botox, Xeomin, and Dysport are all the same price. Now, I don't care what you use. They all work about the same. They uncouple depressors from the tyranny of the elevator. So you are a Botox freedom fighter. You're emancipating the elevators from the tyranny and oppression of the depressors. So look for depressors everywhere, because no one recognizes the absence of depressors. People recognize absence of elevators. Non-animation, it's a telltale sign of over-Botoxing. Knocking off depressors, nobody notices. Just don't knock off all the elevators, okay? And so let's knock off her depressors. So we're going to use a dilution technique of 2-to-1. What does that mean? I take that 200 units and I put not 2 cc's, which would be 1-to-1, but 4 cc's of normal saline with preservative. Why not 1-to-1? I like 2-to-1 because it makes this really easily. This is not a 30-unit vial or a syringe now. There's a 31-gauge B&D needle. This is now 15 units because I'm 2-to-1. At 1-to-1, or 2 cc's per 200 units, 1 cc per 100 units, this would actually be 30 units. Then I have to count every little increment. Because I inject 5 units everywhere, 30 down to 20 is 5, not 10. 20 down to 10 is 5, and 10 down to 0 is 5. Just makes it real easy. 5 units everywhere. So I don't have to really count small increments. It's that simple. I believe in concentration. I'm a concentrationist. I don't want to have much dispersion. I'm a concentrationist. I don't want much dispersion. You get about a half a cc a spread, whether it's 1-to-1, 2-to-1. You get more than that at 4, 5, and 6-to-1. So dilutionists are more European. Concentrationists, 1-to-1, 2-to-1 diluters, are more North American. And generally, we don't want spread here. Zoom out a bit, show me the brow, because that could come over the orbital rim onto levator aponeurosis. And we don't want spread here, because that can go from orbicularis oculi to zygomaticus major and minor. 2 principal areas of spread. So concentrationist, 1 cm of spread. Okay, that's why I use 2-to-1. 1-to-1, same thing. From now on, no more dilution. We're talking units. Therefore, it doesn't matter how you dilute. It's the number of units you put in an area. Okay, so I want to knock off this principally, and it just happens that'll be a little less noticeable. But I really want to knock off this to allow frontalis to do that. And so let's go after a central corrugator supercilii, which is a vertically oriented muscle fiber. I'm going to rotate in, and I inject with the palm of my hand. 30 down to 20, 20 down to 10. That is 5 and 5, or 10 units. Now I pull back with my ring finger, so there's no dribbling. Now I palm my injection, so I hold it with my thumb, my middle, and my index, and I use my palm to inject. That leaves my ring finger free to pull back to create negative pressure so we don't dribble. Okay? Now normally, if I wasn't doing a bunch of injectables and laser, I'd go after the tail of the corrugator, but I usually leave that alone because there's a high risk of dispersion there. Bring them back in a week, 10 days, do your Botox touch-up then, or do all your fillers now, lasers now, bring them back to your Botox 2 weeks later. That's 2 visits for one patient. I don't have that kind of time. So now I'm going to hit her central procerus, which also brings the central brow down. It gives horizontal crunch lines. I'm going to use 5 units, 10 down to 0, because it's a 2-to-1 dilution. I rotate in because it's a sub-Q muscle. I palm my way in, and I ring finger my way out, so there's no dribbling. Okay, let's do the same side, same thing on the other side. Grab the corrugator supercilii, which is a vertically oriented fiber. It doesn't do a lot of that. And we're going to grab, and I'm going to rotate my way in. Why? There's less burst pain. If you pop through, it hurts more than rotating through. I'm simply going to go from 30, let me turn this so you can see, 30 down to 20, that's not 10 units but 5 because it's a 2-to-1 dilution. 20 down to 10, that's not 10 units but 5 because it's a 2-to-1 dilution. I simply now pull back with my ring finger, create negative pressure, come out, no dribbling. They're not paying you for transepidermal administration. They actually want it in their body. Epidermal Botox has proven not to be effective. Okay, so now we've done our central depressors. Now what about the lateral depressors? So I want to do the highest vertical fiber of orbicularis oculi because it does this. And I want to stop that to allow frontalis to do this. So I go for the highest vertical line I can see, which is right here. Watch out for veins. The number 1 risk here is going to be aponeurotic ptosis. The number 1 risk here is ecchymosis or bruising. I've never seen lateral rectus palsy, so stay 1 centimeter away from the orbital rim. My finger's 2 centimeters, so stay at least 1 centimeter away. And then find the highest vertical line, intradermal injection. I stay intradermal here to minimize bruising. I go from 10 down to 0, which is 5 units, little intradermal bleb. I leave the highest vertical point of the orbicularis oculi vertical, which does that. I come down to the lateral canthus, 1 finger breadth away. Watch out for veins. This is like a TB injection, little intradermal injection, 5 units. And normally I'd come around the corner and do one here, but I'm worried that this and this are very close. I might get zygomaticus major and minor, effector smile, so I don't do that one and I don't do this one. 2 risks of dispersion. Come back and my nurse will do it a week or 10 days later. Now, if I wasn't doing a whole bunch of lasers and injectables, wasn't all swollen, drops down to a CM dispersion, then I do it now. But now when she's all puffy and swollen, there's a lot more dispersion. Same on the other side. We want to get the vertical fibers, orbicularis oculi, put that in the middle of the screen, beautiful. I go to the highest vertical point. I'm about 2 centimeters away from the orbital rim. Watch out for any veins and inject. Drop down to the lateral canthus, 1 finger breadth away. Watch out for veins and inject. I come around the corner. I wouldn't do that one. Too close to zygomaticus major and minor when she's swollen. So now what have I done? I've knocked off this. I've knocked off that and this. So what should happen? All the facial nerve innervation on the frontal temporal does this. Show the brow. You're not showing enough of the brow. All the frontal temporal innervation will do that, elevate her brow. Now, I'm not going to accept just uncoupling elevators. I'm going to use mechanical elevation with 3-dimensional volume to do that as well. So first of all, I want to soften just her central frown lines just because they look like she's worried all the time. So I don't mind getting a little bit of this, little tiny tilt where the tail is higher than the head by softening central frontalis. Chin down a bit. So lift your brows up. I grab the highest vertical point right here and I stay between my fingers. I simply do 1 to 2 centimeter, 1 to 2 units, intradermal, relax, 2 centimeters away, intradermal, 2 centimeters away, intradermal, 2 centimeters away. I go between these two, between that one, and then I'll sometimes do 1 little drop here and 1 there, especially if they tend to spock out. Now that's about 8 units, no more than that. That leaves the entire lateral frontalis getting all the innervation to lift that tail up. That took me 15, 30, 45, 60, 68 to 70 units, just to uncouple the depressors. She still gets this movement, so you don't notice that she's had too much Botox. If she ends up being way up in the air, like a Spock brow or a Jack Nicholson brow, you wait about a week and then drop it down. between the hairline and the hyperelevation, halfway in between 1 unit per millimeter of drop that you need, okay? Very straightforward improvement. Now, we aren't done yet. We're not going to rely just on neuromodulators. We're going to use a little filler above the eyebrow to lift a little bit and fill in the temporal hollow. So buttress number 1, supraorbital temporal. What are we going to use? Allergan, 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 Allergan. The manufacturer of Juvederm. You could use Restylane. You could use Bolotero, I guess, Radius, and Sculptra. My principle is I only use reversible agents now because if I get wedged in a capillary bed and there's some necrosis or cyanosis, I want to reverse it. I can't reverse Radius, I can't reverse Sculptra, I can't reverse Belafil, but I can reverse any HA gel. This lasts about a year anyway, not 2, because I reconstitute for comfort. What does that mean? It means that I take a syringe of Voluma, and with a bunch of, 2-port Lure-locked or 3-port, I can put a bunch of the pure Voluma in a 1 cc syringe, half a cc, and then mix it with a half a cc of 1% or half a percent lidocaine. So this is reconstituted for comfort. It doesn't change the shape, doesn't change the structure, it just changes how quickly it breaks down. So it lasts 1 year. So I tell the patient I'm using Juvederm, I've added some local to make it comfortable. It's going to last 1 year. I don't say dilution. It sounds like you're somehow ripping them off. I tell them I reconstitute for comfort. It's going to last 1 year. Even if I don't reconstitute, it doesn't last 2 years anyway. 1 year, every year you see them, and you top up their volumization. It's reconstituted for comfort. But that takes your syringe from $400 to $200, making it much more affordable for the patient and you. And I've been doing that forever anyway, because they used to ship us 5 before Allergan, shipped us Juvederm in 5 cc syringes, no Lido. We made a bunch of 1 cc syringes with Lido. And it works, and it lasts 1 year. So, ma'am, I'm reconstituting your Juvederm with Lido. It's going to last 1 year. Okay? Now, we want to get that under the skin. How do we do that? We use a microcannula system. And so I never use a sharp needle when I'm injecting deep. I use this Dermasculpt for about 8 years, works beautifully, and it's warehoused in Miami, so it's got a DIN number with the FDA. You get about 25 of these in a box. They're about $5 a piece. I use 1 set for the entire face. Now you could try 25, 27. You get a lot of popping off of your Lure Lock when you get increased viscosity of your product. So I use the 22 2-inch. Okay, so let's go ahead and do her brow lift completion with volume. And so turn this way just a bit, young lady. She'll be nice and comfortable. We're going to do supraorbital Voluma lift and turn that and do it in the temporal hollow as well. And so we need a port creator. And so if you wanted to create a device that's going to get an arterial blood gas, I'd probably make it look like this. Doesn't that look kind of thing that would draw blood from an artery? Now, if I wanted a device that didn't do well as a blood gas system, give me the microcannula. It would look probably something like that. Doesn't that look like it would get into an artery with great difficulty? So no one's ever going to prove that microcannulas are safer. No one's going to do a study with 20,000 patients, one side of their face with a sharp needle, one with a microcannula, and let's see how many people we blind. The study probably won't get approved. So some things are just de facto. If you line these two up and you said, which one is probably the safer? Use your imagination. Okay, so I'm going to hand that back. My principle, deep injections, no sharp needle. Intradermal, sharp needle, but no risk of angioembolism with intradermal injection. So let's do our deep I'm above the periostem at all times. Simply use a 30 gauge angle under the skin, rotate a little bit and stretch. I take that, I park it so I know where it is at all times on the precordium. So park it so it's nice and safe. And then take your microcannula. Take your microcannula and position it. So I go through my little port that I created, and I'm going to pop through the skin, the subacute orbicularis oculi, like so. No, don't push back, please. Third time lucky now. And we're going to do supraperiosteal advancing above the supraorbital to the supratrochlear. I'm going to eject on the way back. You can see where that is now. I'm under orbicularis oculi. And now I'm going to take my Juvederm Voluma, reconstitute for comfort. It's going to last 1 year. And I've got about half a cc of Lido, half a cc of already reconstituted Juvederm, because Allergan does that already for you. They give you 0.9 and 0.1. I'm just making it 0.5 and 0.5 for comfort, and it lasts 1 year. So I'm going to take this, attach it to my microcannula, and then we simply do a little what I call toothpicking, advance, inject on the way back, advance, inject on the way back. I lay down little toothpicks all the way across the brow, which is going to give her a little lift effect, all the way across the brow. And when I get to the tail of the brow, I'm going to get most of my injection of half a cc right there in the last little bit to lift mechanically her tail up, and that'll kick in with the Botox at 3 to 6 days. Now, she is a little hollow under the temple, so I want to fill that temple, so I simply turn my microcannula, I pop under her temporal fascia right there. I lay down a little bit of product, not much. You don't need much there. I'm not trying to fill in the temporal hollow and make her look like a Klingon. I just want to fill in that deep central cone so it doesn't look so skeletal. Cadaveric would be the word, right? And so I do a little linear toothpicking, pull back, massage in, and we're done. We've done her supraorbital temporal hollow, okay? Very simple technique, and that gives her a little mechanical brow lift. Now we go to the other side, do the same thing. Back to you, 30 gauge. This port, if that's a 22 gauge, is about a 21, it's 2 gauges bigger. Simply go under the skin, a little stingy, looking your best, always hurts a little bit. If it didn't hurt, you'd wonder, what the hell am I spending all this money for? No pain, no gain. That's hammered into our, our North American culture. And so we got to go under the orbicularis oculi. So I got to find my hole again, which is sometimes difficult. There it is right there. Now I lift up, I squeeze, I go through the skin, through orbicularis oculi. I'm bouncing on her bone. Don't go under the periosteum, stay above it. Slide above the supraorbital, that'll sting a bit. Above the supratrochlear, that stings a bit. And as you come back, you lidocaine the supraorbital supratrochlear. What a great way to anesthetize the brow for a little CO2 if you want to do that. And we simply inject on the way back, small amounts, just a little bit on the way back. Very nice. I get to that tail of the brow. We have a little bit left there. And now I'm going to have to change syringes, some more Voluma, reconstitute for comfort. And I simply lift her tail of her brow with the product. Don't go under the hair, under the brow. Stay above the hair, a few millimeters, so the light reflex strikes the supraorbital skin, not the hair, and gives the illusion of a lift and mechanically gives a lift. Now, as I get to the end of the tail of the brow, I simply turn. This is a bit tricky. You got to practice a few times. That's why they make mother-in-laws. Invite them into town, practice on her, send her home, and send you some selfies, and see how she looks. Don't unleash these new skills on paying clients until your mother-in-law looks good. Okay, now we're going to turn, pop under the temporal fascia, like so, and there we are, under TPF. Now the facial nerve runs into TPF, temporal fascia, as does the superficial temporal artery. I'm under that above the deep layer of the deep superficial layer of the deep temporal fascia. And I use a microcannula. There's some people use sharp needles. I use a microcannula everywhere deep. I lay down a little product right in the apex of her deep concavity here. You don't need a lot. I massage it in. Squeeze your balls of reassurance. You got the pain relief mechanism there. And there again, we've got a nice mechanical brow lift. Now her Botox will kick in and she'll go whoosh, even higher. Now we've done the upper third. Now we need a mid-face lift. What is that going to be? Remember, the infraorbital buttress, zygomatic arch. Infraorbital buttress, zygomatic arch, and nasal tip and bridge. Those are the mid-face structures. And so what do we need for toxin in the mid-face? DSN, zoom out, show me the mid-face. Beautiful. DSN, DAO. DSN, DAO, allowing this, and this. So knock off your depressors first. 3 to 5 units in the DSN, depressor septi nasal, allows the elevators of the tip to do that a little bit. Now, you don't want to miss Piggy, but you don't want a plunging nasal tip like those birds that dip in the water every time she smiles. So I squeeze so she gets hypoxic. When she's hypoxic, she's delirious and doesn't remember that. And so 3 to 5 units right there in the DSN. Now I want to get OO, orbicularis oris, rolls the lip in, LLS, levator labial superioris, rolls the lip out. So I use about 1 unit, 1 to 2 units in the lateral 20% right down to the hub. Why? That's where orbicularis oris is. 1 unit there, and if open up just a bit, that's where orbicularis oris lives, right there. Same on the other side, open, 1 unit in the lateral 10%, and that's where orbicularis oris lives. What is that doing? Well, if it weakens the rolling in of the lateral lip, LLS, levator labii superioris, does that. And that's a muscle that attaches to the premaxillary periosteum and enters the dermis of the upper lip. Okay? Where's her can of reassurance? Okay? And so that's orbicularis oris and LLS. The last area of dynamic balance. Think of the face of a tug of war between elevators and depressors. Elevator, depressor, elevator, depressor, elevator, depressor, elevator, depressor, elevator, depressor, elevator, depressor, elevator, depressor. That's kind of redundant. Redundancy is good for memory. Elevator, depressor. Young, come hither, young man, old and demented. Youthful, drooling, and demented. Attractive, incontinent. These are the adjectives that often stimulate by depressors. And so two ways to get the DAO. I can come down about 1 centimeter, in about 2 centimeters, and inject directly into the last fibers of DAO as it attaches to the modiolus. Modiolus is dense collagenous condensation. The zeta men, zygomatic major minor, DAO, and rhizoras all attach here, and they're all doing different things: elevation, depression, stabilization. So I want to knock off this one so we get the elevator. Again, how does that work? I come down centimeter or 2, turn, and go directly into the DAO as it attaches to the modiolus. Now, most people would inject the DAO way down here, which is okay. But down here, the DLI, DAO are very close. If you get some dispersion, you're going to get weakness of the DLI, and it's going to lift up, and you're going to not see all the teeth. So I tend to stay more proximal, not down on the basal border, but you can do either. So let's look at our mid-face toxin uncoupling. What have we done? 3 to 5 units, 3 to 5 units, 3 to 5 units, 3 to 5 units, 3 to 5 units. Nasal tip elevation, lip elevation, corner of the mouth elevation. That took 11 to 15 units. So if you look at her face, I've used 1 bottle of Botox, 100 units for the brow and the mid-face. And she won't look Botox at all because she can move her elevators. You don't miss depressors, you miss elevators. Okay? Now we've done our Botox mid-face lift. Now we have to support it with volume. What are we going to do? Inforbital and zygomatic buttress. And so I want to pick an insertion point that's allowing me to get the entire inforbital buttress. Yeah, you can zoom in more. Leave the mouth alone. Tilt up. So we see the eye. There we go. I want the entire inforbital buttress and the zygomatic arch. So I pick a point right here. I'm going to use that to get to both, hence the 2-inch 22 gauge. Park this. There's a little bit of heme. Dab that. If she feels that drop, don't say, oh my God, there's blood. I'm just going to dab a little bit of heme. Heme. And so here is our valbella, reconstituted for comfort. I also use velour over the buccal space sometimes. So Voluma, Volbella, Volure, the 3 most common Juvie products I use. This is a little less hydrophilic, so it's replaced my Bolotero and Restylane under the eye, allows me to keep all my points with 1 vendor. So now I go under the malar fat pad, like so, slide right up, and I'm right in the medial canthus under orbicularis oculi. I simply inject on the way back the Volbella reconstituted for comfort, and I'm doing a little bit of toothpicking. I'll show you what I mean by toothpicking a little later. And I go right under the eye, right across the inforbital buttress, a little bit of toothpicking, dab the heme, right across the inforbital buttress, right to the lateral canthus. Why do I do the lateral canthus here? Because when I build up the zygomatic arch, I create a relative hollow if I don't prophylactically treat it. And then I come back again. Advance, inject on the way back, advance, inject on the way back. Retrograde linear toothpicking, advance, inject on the way back, 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 advance, inject on the way back. Now I don't have to keep repeating that, you know what I'm doing. So what I mean is I'm doing this. I push tissue out of the way, and then as I come back, I lay down a little toothpick. I push tissue out of the way. On the way back, I lay down a little toothpick. And thousands of those little toothpicks provide support. But each one of them has their own stabilized home. Each one of them has pushed tissue out of the way, and on the way back gets closed off. Each one of those toothpicks is very close to the immune system. It's not a giant blob, as you're often taught to do, go and do 3 vertical sticks with a giant disc of gel that's a foreign body. This has less risk, I think, of biofilm stimulation. And so I don't tend to get nodules at 6, 7, 8 months of sensitivity caused by a biofilm, in my opinion. This is a much safer way to inject. It's going to last 1 year anyway, and I just have thousands of toothpicks all in their own little home. That's exactly how you do fat grafting, because that fat is now within 2 millimeters of blood supply. So I don't like big globular depot deposition. I like retrograde linear toothpick injections in different homes, each stabilized, structured, and available to the immune system. So the immune system says, okay, I'll break this down slowly rather than I need to react to this because I can't break it down because I can't get at it. I think that leads to nodules, okay? Those inflammatory nodules come up 6-7 months later. Okay, so what do we do? Well, let's wipe this off. And I came out artificially, so I wouldn't have come out to talk about toothpicking with you. So now let's pretend I'm under the eye, and I've done my infraorbital buttress, which is medial canthus to lateral canthus and back. I turn, I go right up the zygomatic arch. I turn, go right up the zygomatic arch, and I switch because I'm not going to use Valbella along the zygomatic arch. I'm going to go back to Voluma, reconstitute for comfort, and I want to build up her arch, not her malar eminence, with my Voluma reconstitute for comfort. I simply inject along that area right there, and we get that built up nicely. Beautiful. And we build up her arch, not her malar eminence per se, because she doesn't need a lot. She's got a lovely cheek. I don't want to have her look like some dreaded filler face. Now, some women actually define their beauty on looking done. That's a different category of woman. And that's kind of, you know, they want to look done or they don't look nice. And I say, well, that's going to look done, not nice. They say, yeah, but that's what I want. And then sometimes I inject them and I give them the name of colleagues I don't like and tell them they cannot use my name ever. Or if I find out, I'll never inject them again. Generally, I like to, you know, do what I like, not what the patient likes. So that creates a nice high, relax, let me turn your face, a nice high zygomatic sweep and a brow elevation. See that nice rejuvenation of her under eye and her zygomatic arch? We do now the last buttress here, which is going to be the mandibular border. So show me the lower jawline. Show me the lower jawline right here. Excellent. And now I'm going to come just here, from here to here. Tilt up, tilt up. There we go, beautiful. And now I'm going to do the pre-jowl sulcus of postmandibular border and support the parasymphyseal region and her commissure. So I come in the begonia, and that stings a little bit, but so does growing old without fighting it. And I park that. I take my microcannula, Voluma reconstituted for comfort. I simply go under the DAO, DLI. I grab them, I lift up, I inject along the basal border of the mandible. I actually feel it. So what am I doing here? I'm weirdly lowering the jawline to match the jowl so it looks like she doesn't have a jowl. And this is not a new idea. This is, you know, developed by Sid Coleman and fat grafting back in the 80s. We're just doing the same thing with an off-the-shelf HA gel that lasts a nice long time. So that hides her jowl. And now I'm going to go behind her jowl. The most important thing for her is give her more definition here. And so I'm going to go through the jowl to get at the retromandibular angle. Don't push back on the pillows and don't talk. Just squeeze and the sound of silence. Go Simon and Garfunkel for me, okay? Now I'm going to go through your jowl to the retromandibular border, and I'm going to feel it go right through the masseter, right there. And now I can feel it right on that mandibular border. I've got my finger right here, and I build that up. And that's going to be a more important buttress than the pre-jowl sulcus to create continuity and the illusion of a tight jawline. And so we give her a nice little angle here and build that up, and that will look very nice for her. Excellent. And now chin up a bit. See that nice jawline now? Really restructured the border. Now the last little bit I want to do is support her commissure deep before I come back and do it superficial. Excellent. So now we're going to take about a half cc and I'm going to come under the actual modiolus. Chin up a bit there, young lady. And I go under the muscles and just support the commissure. Now a lot of patients have a deflation right here, so I go deep to the labiomental fold and I create a little parasymphyseal volume so they have a nice light reflex right here. Okay? Now I've done, if we zoom out a bit, zoom out just a bit, we've done her, zoom out to see the brow. We have done quite a bit on her. I'm going to just do a little bit of molding there. And we have done a supraorbital zygomatic arch mandibular volumization. It's already looking good. I like that. Now I recruit her into my scheme. I want you to hold a little pressure with your left hand right here. Flat-fingered, everything flat-fingered, beautiful. Turn this way. And now we simply do the same thing on the other side. Okay? And so I'm going to come through the hypomalar eminence region, 30-degree angle, stretch. I'm going to go at the infraorbital buttress with Valbella reconstituted for comfort. Dab any little heme. I'm going to go under the malar fat pad. up the periosteum to the nasojugular groove. I'm going to move across the lower lid very gently, just creating toothpicks, retrograde linear injection, right to the lateral canthus. I stop, and then I inject on the way back. Again, just doing this, laying down a little toothpick, then another little toothpick, all the way across that lower lid to provide the structural support that she needs to not look hollow and to plump out her tear trough and orbital malar groove. Now, once I want to come up that zygomatic arch, I swap out my Volbella. I go back to Voluma, reconstituted for comfort, and I turn and come right up that zygomatic arch. Now, I'm way up here, right on the zygomatic process of the temporal bone. I'm injecting on the way back. I'm creating a little zygomatico-temporal, zygomatico-facial nerve anesthesia. This one creates a V2 anesthesia, which makes your resurfacing, if you're going to do it, more comfortable. But I would augment that with your mesocaine after your injectable. And we build up her zygomatic arch like the other side. And we used about a half cc there. We used about a half cc here. And we'll assess balance and proportion in a second. Last but not least, the lower border, the mandibular border, the pre-jowl and the post-jowl mandibular border. I come through the Pagonian. You can come down onto your ball of, or your Botox bottle of reassurance. Chin up, you're doing fantastic. I go through the Pagonian, a little stinging there, and I take my micro cannula with Voluma. I go under the DAO DLI. I'm building up the mandibular border. I can feel that. I'm just feeling my micro cannula, retrograde linear toothpicking. I'm actually lowering that border to be even with the jowl so the jowl doesn't dip. Now, that would look kind of heavy front-loaded if I didn't do the balancing, which is creating that, a little lift at the back of the jawline. So I go through the jowl with my micro cannula, and I just make sure she's awake. And so a little poke, she moves, I know she's awake. And if you don't see any heme coming through your ports, feel the carotid and make sure it's still pulsating. Those are two reassuring signs of extantness, not extinctness. And so I'm stretching the skin, plugging that into the skin, take my Voluma reconstituted for comfort. I go through the jowl, and I go right to her, right through the masseter, right through the masseter there. I'm injecting the mandibular border. Everything has a little lidocaine in it, so it ends up being a little numb. So what a great time to do your 1540 or CO2. And then a little auditory reassurance that she's still with the living. Excellent. And again, last little bit. And then we're going to support the corner of her mouth. Beautiful, liking that a lot. Okay, now I'm going to take a look at contour and balance, but I want to lift her commissure up a bit and chin up a bit in the air. Beautiful angle, thank you. I'm going to go right at that commissure, give it a little bit of support, right there. Come down her labiomental fold, retrograde linear injections. Everything's deep. I haven't done one intradermal injection yet. Everything is way down in the fat, above the bone or under the muscle. And I do a little on the periphyseal region. Okay, and that looks pretty good, but pretty good ain't enough. We still got a few more beauty things to do. Okay, so now I take a look at the contour and the shape. Looking pretty darn good. Zoom out so you can see the whole face. Zoom out. Beautiful. So supraorbital, temporal, zygomatic arch, mandibular border. I'm liking that. She looks way less boxy, much more oval. But we got a couple things to do yet to complete the beauty paradigm. Give me Voluma on a Sharpie. For the very first time, we're going intradermal on her, very first time. Now I want to support the commissure directly. I call it like the doorstop in Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton's pulling her down. We want to put a doorstop in that and stop him from his hideous gravitational principle of physics. Zoom in. I want to lift the commissure where it belongs, right there. And I want to come in intradermally about a 45-degree angle. I want to inject intradermally. So now I want to see the white of the needle. Now I'm really very superficial. I inject on the way back, supporting that commissure with a little tabletop of support. I want to get exaggerate elevation. I want it to look like Heath Ledger Dark Knight 2 for a few minutes, okay? Put that in the right position, intradermal injection, get that support, and then I do a couple little legs on that tabletop right in the superior part of the labiomental fold, retrograde linear intradermal, pushing that tabletop up. So I've got deep support here, deep support there in intradermal in the mouth, and then you get nice horizontalization of the commissure. Same thing on the other side, 45-degree angle, okay, and intradermal work. Inject on the way back, inject on the way back. It's kind of a little nubbin they can feel with their tongue. It feels weird, but it looks good. And so once the nubbin is gone, I tell them that's when you want to worry, because now your mouth is falling again. You've got the mouth pout, and it's time to do it again. So I see them back once every year for a volume, twice a year for Botox. And you're thinking, well, how the hell are you going to charge for this? I just used 10 syringes. 10, which is easy for me. It's a huge area. And you know, you lose a teaspoon of fat between 45 and 65. Adds up to about 20 teaspoons of fat. And we're only allowed to use these little syringes. We can't even keep up with fat loss if you inject over broad areas like I do. I did the supraorbital, temporal, the zygomatic arch, infraorbital, mandibular board. We do a large area. It's not all in the malar eminence. So it doesn't look over injected. It's just enough amount. So I'm using 10 syringes. Just think about it. Each syringe is now not $400. It is $200 because it's reconstituted for comfort. So my fixed cost for the filler is 10 times 200, $2,000. My fixed cost for 100 is 600. I'm 2,600 in. I've got to charge her something at least 1,000 to 1,500 over that. So I would charge minimum $39.99 for this. The key is when you add the CO2, it adds a huge improvement. You can make it maybe $49.99 or $44.49. But the CO2 costs you absolutely nothing. There's no disposable. That's the big value of CO2. It bundles at no disposable cost. Now, if you look at her mouth, wow, looking pretty damn good. Now, we baked the cake, but we need icing. Every cake needs icing and a little maraschino cherry. So I'm going to take her lips, which are nice. Nice isn't good enough. I want awesome. And we're going to go and do her lip volume a little bit to roll out that lateral portion of the lip. And so I use Voluma Reconstitute for Comfort. Let's say you're obsessed with nasolabial folds. You can't help injecting them. I almost never do, because nasolabial folds don't make you look human. Monkeys don't have an NLF, and they still don't look Homo sapien. My 8-year-old has smile lines. He still looks pretty young. So I don't worry about smile lines unless they come around the mouth and combine with a labiamental fold. Now, if you want to do smile lines, just simply do your microcannula. Don't go too deep here. Show me the nose. Show me the nasal base. If you go too deep, you get, there's a confluence of the transverse facial artery, nasolabial artery, and a lot of necrosis right here. Same with the glabella. Stay superficial and subdermal when doing the nasolabial fold. I don't do it anyway, so no big deal. I come down, I go through, open up the orbicularis, I pop through right here. I never inject the lip. I go in and out like a Delta Force Navy SEAL lip injector. Never leave a bruise, never leave a mark, never know you're there, other than the lip looks awesome. And so open up. I'm back in the wet mucosa. I'll show you why. Once I get out here with no resistance, I'm under the orbicularis, above the muscularis mucosa. As I inject on the way back, no scallops, and it just rolls out the lip. It's like a lip VY augmentation, and I get right down to the commissure, but she doesn't look ducky. Just open up the lip. So she looks vertically augmented, not anterior-posterior augmentation. Women don't want to look ducky. They want to look like they have lips right to the commissure. And so we're always taught to inject right here, and I don't know why, because that makes lips look ducky. I'm way back here. I'm rolling that out so it looks vertically high but not protrusive. Okay? Same thing on the other side. I go down the nasolabial fold. I want to create a little area where I can get into that track. If you want to go up the NLF, you can, but I don't. I just want to do this. You got to pop through orbicularis. I can feel it. I roll the lip out. I simply go right out to the prolabial segment, and I inject on the way back, just like this. And it gives vertical height right to the commissure, but nothing crazy. And right to the commissure, like so. Relax. And now we've got nice vertically high lip, right to the commissure, but doesn't look augmented, okay? Now, we're not done yet. Now, I add a little bit of a white roll to the whole scenario. So give me some Voluma or Volbella on a 31 gauge 1 inch, 30 gauge 1 inch. So you see how our white roll is a little atrophied? So the vertical lip lines can bleed right into the lip and the lip liner bleeds. So I take second time, intradermal, right up to the Cupid's bow. So I go intradermal, and I go right up to the Cupid's bow. I inject on the way back. Not too much. She doesn't want to look 18 again. That would look a bit weird. Just an awesome 63. And so I create a little white roll right there, intradermal, little support. I go from the top. Sometimes I create an artificially high Cupid's bow. It looks more youthful, shortens that patchless flat upper lip. I go from the top of the Cupid's bow down to the bottom. And this hurts like hell. Why doesn't it? Because I did a lip block before. From the bottom to the top. And again, Ideally, you shouldn't be injecting and doing a laser over intradermal work, chin up a bit. But again, this is just slightly below the deep reticular dermis, and my heat will be in the papillary dermis, and I have found I don't get any degeneration if I do CO2 over a well-placed filler. Now, I'm not done yet, even though I created a white roll. I want to accentuate the fill through column. So I go up the fill through column to the nasal base, a little stinging, inject on the way back. I go right up the nasal base, inject on the way back. Excellent. And now I'm almost done my mid-face rejuvenation. So now what I want to do is give me a damp gauze or actually an alcohol wipe. Let me wipe off all my marks. But she's starting to look pretty damn awesome. You know, for a 10 cc injection on deflated 63-year-old face, that looked pretty good to begin with. And so I'm going to clean up a lot of my marks here so we're not misled by eyebrow liner. And we'll clean up a little bit of the heme so she looks a little less red. Excellent. And we'll take a look at our contour and our shape. Contour and shape. Okay, so let's take a look here. Now, my fixed cost, $2,600. She's buying about 8 years to 10 years of youth. I'm charged $1,700 per year of youth, sliding scale after 5 years. In my practice, with the neck and the face, all this, I would charge about $14,000, $15,000. Why? Because I can. How much could you get away with? $8,000 or $9,000 easily. Keep it sub 10, sounds better. And it's more than half the result of an open lift anyway. You're going to get away with that all day long. Just do the face with what I'm showing today. Between $4,000 and $5,000, just the neck, between $3,000 and $4,000, okay? Average prices. Now, we're not done yet, but she's looking pretty damn good. Not quite done yet. We need a little laser ablation, upper lip, lower lid, and finish with the cherry on the cake, which is the nose. I always save the nose to the end. Okay, let's come back to our lovely machine here. Let's go to facial settings. Let's go back into the laser, and now we're going to add a little more wattage to the whole thing. And what I'm going to get you to do here is just open your mouth and hold that and take both hands on each side and just hold some pressure for swelling. And Danielle will put the goggles on. Okay, here's our laser. Let's go into our laser. And I want more than 15 watts, of course, because we're in the face. It's much thicker tissue. And so go up to around 25 watts of energy, which will be good. Same pulse duration, same speed. And we're about 75 millijoules per spot. We're down around 20, 23 in the neck, so almost 3 times the energy. And so we want to make these guys go away. And so we're going to put this on rectangle. Let's treat her lower lid lines first. And so I'm going to come back to our face now. I'm going to reposition my lead impregnated stainless steel goggle so I can get at those crinkles. And she's already got some local anesthesia from the injection of my juvie. That juvie's on the bone. My laser's in the dermis. You can do it, not a problem. And we're going to pull that skin down, and we're going to get her wrinkles a little tighter. 1, 2, 3. I got to hit the start button. That would be helpful. Okay. And 1, 2, and 3. Pull down. 1, 2, and 3. Pull down. 1, 2, and 3. And so she gets a nice treatment of her crinkles on her crow's feet and her lower lid, all done comfortably because of your mesocaine and also your injections with the actual the lidocaine in the juvie. Same on the other side. I'm still double pulsed here, remember? I'm doing 2 pulses down the same hole. I want those wrinkles gone. 1, 2, and 3. Pull down with your handpiece. 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to use my other hand so you can see. Pull down. 1, 2, and 3. Excellent, looking good here. So she'll be a little weepy, a little crusty in the facial areas, but it generally heals beautifully and leads to a very nice improvement. And sometimes I'll come back and I'll do a little blending, as I'll show you. Come off here now, back down to your Botox bottles of reassurance. And let's do our lip lines right along the lip roll. Now I'm under the dermis with a filler. I'm in the dermis with a CO2. And again, a very nice improvement. Squeeze the bottles, don't push back. You're doing A+, young lady. Turn this way. We're almost done this hideous part. And this is the last vestige of 63-year-old skin. Okay, now that was stingy, but so does growing old without fighting it. Now we're going to be kind. We're going to blend with less energy. Let's go back into our machine, over here, back into our machine. We hit the pause button. Okay, and now we go back into our laser settings. I'm going to keep that. That's okay. But I'm going to go back into this. I'm going to go out of stacking to single pulse and hit OK. We're back to 38, half the energy we just did. And now we're going to blend that in a bit so there's no demarcation. Okay, so we're going to blend that in a bit. Now it's a little less stingy, young lady. Chin up, you're doing great. So I blend in the margin. Little blending, little faster, little whiter. Doesn't look as angry in ablation. Very nice result. We can treat some of her lines in the middle of her forehead here, the nasal dorsum where she's got those horizontal lines. And we can blend this in here nicely. So CO2 is a very, very valuable tool. It adds a tremendous amount of value to the outcome, and there's no disposable, so I find it very useful in my practice. Patients are coming to me. They expect good results. They expect that they're going to have some downtime. And so when I tell them they need to take a week off and they spent that kind of money, that's okay because they expect it. They expect it. Now I can change. Just relax, young lady, relax. Nothing's happening. I'm going to switch to a square, and I'm going to do a little bit of forehead rejuvenation. Now she's pretty numb because I already did a block, and you already did the Juvederm. And so I'm adding a little improvement in those central forehead lines where she's got permanent creases. The Botox has already left the derma, so I'm not heating the Botox. You don't need to worry about heating the Botox. When it happened about 45 minutes ago, it's already left that space. You're not causing a degeneration of the Botox. Now, if you want to be even more careful, don't do your ablation and Botox in the same day. Bring her back in a week when the CO2 settled and do your Botox then. You don't have to do it necessarily on the same day. Okay, very nice, excellent result. Contralateral side, beautiful. Okay, now that's going to be the same kind of care. Topical Aquaphor, you can put some PRP on it to make it heal better. And now we've completed our triple therapy. And again, she's doing awesome because remember she came into this weekend, we're not done yet, a facial virgin, no intervention. That's extremely uncommon in my practice. Most people have had Botox, filler, laser hair removal, photofacials. They've done almost everything by the time they lie down in a chair at 63 and I'm hitting with a needle. I go, oh, that was nothing. That's better than my last 3 facelifts. Different perspective, but she's done very, very well. Where are you going? Where's the port creator? Yes, I surprised you. Remember when I said we're saving the nose for the end? Okay, so just open up there, young lady, and close down. And then I'm going to take just between the domes, zoom in on the nose alone. Zoom in on the nose alone. Excellent. So I'm between the lower lateral cartilage. You have to remind yourself where they are. A little pinprick here, 1, 2, 3. Nobody likes that, a sharp needle on the nose. That's just wrong. There should be a law against that. Now I'm going to take my micro cannula, which has Juvederm, reconstituted for comfort. I simply slide up right at the nasal dorsum. It looks a lot worse than it is. It's actually really quite comfortable compared to what I've done to her. And I go right up to the glabella. Now just relax, don't squint your nose. If you look at that, it's right down the nasal bridge, and look what that does to her bump. Turn your head. See how it straightens that very nicely? Gives a nice elegant bridge. Now all I knew as I leave the cannula in there for 2 years, it makes collagen around it, and she has a permanent result. Now, most patients aren't going to pay you for that, so I remove the cannula and I put Juvederm behind it. I simply inject a bit above her bump, right up to the glabella, and then I go below the bump and I lay down a little below her bump, okay, just like this, a little below the bump, so above and below. This is called an injection rhinoplasty, very powerful technique for the nasal plunger or the hollowed out scooped nose. And then I can actually do a little support so her nose doesn't plunge along with the DSN. I can come right down between the medial crura, like so. And nobody likes that one, so I'd be cautious doing this if you're not a nasal surgeon. But the bridge is very, very safe. And so now things are quite numb. She doesn't really feel much of anything here. I go right to the bridge again, lay down a little bit of product, and she's going to have a very nice improvement in her nasal contour. And so once I've done that, I simply do a little bit of molding. And I'm very happy with that. That looks super awesome. Now you might wonder how she did that so comfortably. Well, if you notice, I have her biting on a gauze. so she can't articulate her displeasure at my intervention. It's a great time to keep the mouth full of gauze because you hear a muffled. It's all good. You guys okay out there? You guys are stunned by all this shocking assault. Everyone's going, oh my God, I can't believe he's doing this. Now, I was slowing this down. Literally, that would take me 10 minutes to do all that filler. I talk to patients. I use the art of talk aesthesia, where I talk to them while I'm doing it, get them to try to talk to me. Some love that because they go, oh my God, are you done, Dr. Mulholland? I say, yeah, we're done. It took 10 minutes. If I got $1 every time a woman asked me that, I'd be a wealthy, wealthy man at this point in time. And so if you look at this right now, she's got a lovely result in her bridge. Can I give a volume on a Sharpie? The only time I might use a Sharpie is right here to tent out the glabella a little bit. And now I'm using the industry-provided 27-gauge sharp needle just to do a little intradermal work right in the dorsum to hold that bridge out. And that's about the only place, again, in the nose I do intradermal work, corner of the mouth, and the white roll. Those are my 2 areas of dermal injection. So if we take a look at this now, I'm pretty happy with that. Looks pretty good. Back to you. Okay, and so now let's unveil her overall result and talk about her management on the face versus the neck. Come on off here and give me a damp gauze. I'm going to clean off the ablation. Look at her upper lip now. Show me the upper lip. Doesn't that look awesome? Look how much more youthful that looks. She has a nice elevation laterally. The LLS is going to roll it out. The ZMM is going to do this. And she's going to have no lines because we were pretty aggressive on the ablation. So her lip is going to go from 63, a pretty good 63, to an awesome 49. Okay, looks awesome. Her jawline, look at that, beautiful jawline. Her submentum, chin up, is going to be beautiful. And a little bit of heme there, we'll clean that off. And her scar is going to be greatly improved. But look at her face, look at the jawline. Don't go up too high. See that jawline now defined? Come up to her mid-face. See that zygomatic sweep? Now look at her nose. Isn't that awesome? Look at here. Let me fix that here for you. And so a little bit of tip support. And her nose looks much more elegant without the bump. And last but not least, her brow is elevated. Look up to the camera now. Don't be a show-off. Her brow looks elevated and lovely, and the Botox hasn't even kicked in yet. When it does, we'll get this and that. Okay, so that is the use of volume, about 10 syringes, 100 units of Botox, fractional ablation to turn back the clock 10 years. What do you charge? You charge per year. Charge patients per year. That way, the commodification is gone. They don't even know what you charge for Botox and filler. You do whatever it takes to get that year of youth, and every year it takes a certain amount of Botox, filler, and laser. Okay, so I want you to hold a little bit of pressure on the bridge of your nose like so. This young lady did awesome. A round of applause for her today. Wow, she was awesome, really good. And put a little polyspore on her upper lip and under her eye. You could use PRP. Let's have an extra. So thank you very much for joining us. Cynosure, Washington, D.C., injectable, laser, rejuvenation. We'll see you next week in Atlanta. Okay, so I would charge whatever I can get away with. What can I get away with? Well, $1,700 a year in my market. Now, because no one, even a city of 6.5 million, is doing anything like that or close to that, you can really separate your practice. Now, does that mean everyone's going to do that? Someone would just say, what can I get for $300? I say, well, save $75 and you can get a consult. I charge $375 for a consult. Why? Because the next most expensive person charges $300. If they charge $375, I'll be $450. Again, it's just a business model. There's always someone in every market that will only go to the most expensive because if they're not most expensive, they don't think they're the best. Kind of a silly economic principle, but I love it because what a great business model. Because in a city of 6.5 million, there's always going to be one group of people that is always going to go to the most expensive, and I want them because they don't know what a recession is. A recession is an opportunity to buy up distressed properties and be wealthier. So I feel that I'm kind of like the Robin Hood of injectables. Me and my merry men steal from the rich of Nottingham, so the not so rich of Sherwood Forest can also look good. And so I also have a volumized program where they will spend X amount per syringe and X amount per unit. However, that is done by the nurses, not me. So when you're first starting out, good God, you may have one program where you have a per year youth non-surgical facelift program, and you charge per year of use, and that's where you're putting out the 8, 9, 10 syringes, and that's where you're charging just for the job, not the amount used, but be very conscious about it. Start with your cost of goods and services and work your way up. And once you know your cost of goods and services, then you charge appropriately for them. And so I already know right now that she just cost me, in goods and services, she cost me, good God, someone put this right.